start off the video, I'd like to take a look at my favorite scene from 1984, as I think it is very relevant to the current situation, and I think it helps to recontextualize just how insane the whole thing is. I'm going to try to summarize this a bit, so just bear with me. On the 6th day of Hate Week, as the general hatred of Eurasia had boiled up into such delirium that if the crowd could have gotten their hands on the 2,000 Eurasian war criminals who were to be publicly hanged on the last day of the proceedings, they would unquestionably have torn them to pieces. At just that moment, though, it had been announced that Oceania was not, after all, at war with Eurasia. Oceania was at war with Eastasia. Eurasia was an ally. There was, of course, no admission that any change had taken place. Merely it became known with extreme suddenness and everywhere at once that Eastasia, not Eurasia, was the enemy. Prior to the announcement, an inter-party member had been giving an angry speech in which he had boomed forth an endless catalog of atrocities, massacres, deportation, lootings, rapings, tortures of prisoners, bombing of civilians, lying propaganda, unjust aggressions, broken treaties that had been committed by Eurasia. It was almost impossible to listen to him without being first convinced and then maddened. At every few minutes, the crowd boiled over and the voice of the speaker was drowned out by a wild beast-like roaring that rose from the thousands of throats. The speech had been proceeding for perhaps 20 minutes when a messenger hurried onto the platform and a scrap of paper was slipped into the speaker's hand. He unrolled and read it without pausing in his speech. Nothing altered in his voice or manner, or in the content of what he was saying, but suddenly the names were different. Without words said, a wave of understanding rippled through the crowd. Oceania was at war with Eastasia. Eurasia was an ally. The next moment there was tremendous commotion. The banner and posters with which the square decorated were all wrong. Quite half of them had the wrong faces on them. It was sabotage. The Brotherhood and the dissidents had been at work. There was a riotous interlude while posters were ripped from walls, banners torn to shreds and trampled underfoot. The spies performed. 1 or 2 minutes later, the fail roars of rage were back. The hate continued exactly as before, except that the target had been changed. And I bring that scene up because the first response I think a lot of people have to reading it is to laugh, to say that's funny, that's a good satire of how the narrative can change over time, how people can contradict themselves, how cognitive dissonance is a problem, and how it's very easy for the public to kind of get on board with it and to have the memory of goldfish. And I think it was supposed to be an exaggeration, but that is more or less literally what's happened in the past week with regards to Joe Biden and the media snaking on him. Now, for those of you who are fortunate enough to not watch the mainstream media, within hours of Joe Biden's embarrassing debate performance against Donald Trump, they immediately threw him under the bus and completely changed the narrative. And this is not just some random bloggers or people on Twitter. This is the New York Times. This is the Washington Post. This is the Economist. This is CNN, MSNBC. Basically, the entire media is now calling on Joe Biden to step down. They're saying he has dementia, he has Alzheimer's, he's not mentally competent. All these stories that they had denied for months, that like Biden takes a bunch of naps during the day, that he has a bedtime of like 8 p.m., that he's extremely physically frail, that it's time for him to step down and let someone else take over, that there's no way he's going to be able to beat Donald Trump, that he maybe shouldn't even serve out the last couple months of his term. The situation is so bad. And part of the reason that they do this and why they do it so suddenly, and this is kind of the essence of gaslighting, is it's saying something irrational, something that you know the other person knows isn't true, but in a very aggressive, in a very confident fashion. And the idea is to make the other person question their sanity, is to make them go, did I hallucinate the last 4 years? Did I hallucinate? Like, did I just make up in my mind what the media was saying about Biden minutes before the debate, what they've been saying for the past 4 years? Am I just crazy? Because all these people are acting like this never happened. You have hundreds or thousands of people in the media who basically within hours completely changed what they were saying and pretended that all the previous stuff didn't happen. And you see all these people who are supposed to be respectable, and they're fact checkers, and they're media literate, and they're there to hold politicians accountable. And you see them all asserting these things, and you go, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the crazy one. But I'm here to tell you, you're not crazy. You're not wrong. You didn't hallucinate the last 4 years. Literally, up to the debate, the mainstream media's narrative was that Biden is really smart. He's sharp as a tack. People who meet him behind the scenes think he's brilliant. He's healthy as a horse. He's going to live to be 100. If anything, Donald Trump is the senile one. Donald Trump is crazy. Donald Trump has Alzheimer's. The people who are saying that there are questions regarding Biden's fitness to be president, they're conspiracy theorists who believe in QAnon. They're just lying. They're acting in bad faith. They're making things up. I remember Biden's press secretary was even saying that like all the videos of him staring off into space and talking to dead people and just wandering away mid-sentence were deep fakes, that they were just made with AI. And it was just like, that didn't happen. And if you saw those things live and unedited, that was just, you didn't see that. That didn't. So no, you aren't hallucinating that. That was what the media has been saying since 2020, since Biden was first nominated, up to the minute prior to the debate. But much like the man in the inter-party member in that scene in 1984, pretty much mid-sentence they were saying Joe Biden is a very smart man. He's the most competent, capable man to ever become president. Joe Biden needs to step down because he is mentally incapable. He's frail. He can't make important decisions for the country. And it's time for him to be replaced with Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama or Gretchen Whitmer. And really, it's irresponsible for him to even finish his term. He should probably step down now and let Kamala have a couple months of being president to kind of get her administration established. In fact, it's kind of selfish of Biden to have to continue to subject the country to his presence. You know, we've been saying this for years. We've been saying since 2020 that Biden's too old, that they shouldn't have run him, that he should have resigned in the second year of his presidency. There are all these, and this is what we've been saying, but no one has been listening to us. Here at CNN, at MSNBC, at New York Times, we, the alternate media, the independent media, the media that's not controlled by corporate interests or whoever it is at the moment, we've been calling for Biden to step down. And if you think we haven't, then you're crazy. You're crazy, you're stupid, or delusional, or something like that. And I mean, this has happened with all kinds of things. Over the course of my life, I can't think of anything that is as flagrant and as a direct real-world analogy to that scene in 1984. It literally happened within like an hour after the debate and was completely different than the narrative an hour prior to the debate. And on a certain level, I think it is profoundly disturbing, and I think we have to acknowledge it's disturbing and not just kind of shrug it off and go, it's the media being the media. Because if you really think about it, it's profoundly disturbing, and I think it reiterates a point that a lot of people make, but that we even the most cynical people sometimes forget. No matter how much you hate the media, you don't hate them enough. So I'm going to be honest, when this whole media snakening started, I didn't feel relief, I didn't chuckle at it, I didn't feel a sense of catharsis. I actually felt really profoundly disgusted by the whole thing. You know, Dante says the lowest level of hell is reserved for traitors, and that is what these people are. These people who have supported Biden through thick and thin over the past 4 years, who shilled for him, who said everybody who criticized him was nuts, who covered up and made excuses for everything. The moment that they think it's opportune, they throw him under the bus and they pretend that none of that happened. And I mean, at a very basic human level, There's something disgusting about that total lack of loyalty, that total lack of any sort of commitment to Biden as a human being. And I don't say this as somebody who likes Biden or supports him or thinks he's a good president or anything. Like I said, just at a very basic human level, you can't help but feel disgusted that all these people for years were cheering on Biden, saying how much they love him and probably thought that they were his friend and stuff like that. And now they're just immediately throwing him under the bus as if he was garbage. Like none of that meant anything to them. None of that meant anything to them on an emotional level, on a personal level. I just think that's really scummy. I think that's really scummy and that's sociopathic behavior, in my opinion. And maybe that's naive coming out of me, but I still think it is. So that's number one. So I think on a fundamental level, it shows what scumbags and treasonous snakes these people are who have no commitment to just their fellow human beings. I think it also shows, though, that either they are that delusional, that they have that level of cognitive dissonance, or they're just complete sociopaths. And I mean, I don't know which one is really worse. Like, there is a possibility that these people are that dumb, that they have that little agency, that in their mind, they can't see any kind of contradiction. And it's very hard for me, and it's probably hard for a lot of you out there, to really think about that, because you probably are a sane person who has some sort of commitment to the truth, commitment to reality, that the idea of you spending 4 years defending something and then immediately snaking on it and not ever referencing it is just incomprehensible to you. It's just bizarre. Now, I just like to state that this is not them admitting they were wrong. This is not them going, oh my God, I thought the situation wasn't that bad. I thought the Republicans were exaggerating. I thought that they just got, Biden was just, everybody says dumb stuff sometimes. Everybody's tired, or they get caught off guard, or their brain just kind of inserts a random word. But having seen this debate, yeah, it is really bad. Biden should probably step down. I mean, there wasn't really any of that. There was no admission of that they were wrong. And I mean, as like an adult, as a person with a basic commitment to truth, there are lots of times in your life where you have to admit you're wrong and you have to change your opinion. But there has to be some sort of like basic accountability or explanation as to why you're changing it. That didn't happen. Literally, like, they just flipped the switch. There was no explanation for why they flipped the switch. There was no attempt to justify their previous behavior. It's just completely gone. So either they're like goldfish, these people are really, really stupid, and delusional, and have that level of cognitive dissonance that they don't see a contradiction there. They don't see a problem there. They don't see that there's any logical need for them to justify the stuff that they previously said and why they're changing now. That is option one. Option two is they are just sociopaths. They are just fundamentally evil. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about their audiences. Like I said, they don't care about Joe Biden as a real human being. They just want to get paid. They want to control people. And to them, it's just a big game. It's just a big game, and if anything, they take a sadistic pleasure in being able to do this, in being able to gaslight the public, being able to go to the average American and telling them they're crazy and trying to make them think they hallucinated the past 4 years, and seeing the confusion and seeing the state that leaves the person in brings them pleasure, deep pleasure. And as I've said, I think the media fundamentally has a deep personal hatred of the average person. So I think those are the two most likely, the two most likely things. Either they are that stupid and they have that little grasp of reality, or they're just fucking evil. It's probably some kind of combination of the two. They aren't mutually exclusive, and some people could be more in one camp and some people could be more in another camp. But the other major point that I wanted to make, and I brought this up a number of different times with regards to the Russo-Ukraine war, with regards to COVID, and just all kinds of things, is that the media is arguably the least accountable institution in our society. They're never held accountable for any of the things that they do, any of the things that they say, the immense damage they do to people's reputations and to society in general. They're never held accountable for any of that. They can just shrug it off and go, "Oh, well, it was a fact check. It was journalistic integrity. We were just quoting an anonymous source." And they will just evade all responsibility for what they do. But at the same time, they want all the credit in the world for when they speak truth to power or they expose corruption or something like that. Probably the second off the top of my head biggest example of gaslighting was, I don't know if anyone remembers the first couple months of COVID when the media said there was no COVID. They said that you were racist, you were paranoid, you were crazy if you thought COVID was a real thing. You're just anti-Asian, you just want to keep the Chinese people out of your country, and it's just a conspiracy theory. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but pretty much overnight they flipped the switch on that and went into complete and total hysteria mode, and I don't think any of that was ever referenced again. They made up all that stuff about Russia stealing the 2016 election for years, and it was pushed and pushed and pushed, and then obviously it was fake. I don't think there was really any apologies. I don't think the media was like, maybe we should take a long, hard look at ourselves, that we dragged Trump through the mud, we made up all this stuff, we presented like probably one of the biggest, most pervasive conspiracy theories I've ever seen with more or less no evidence. Nope, no accountability. None of the people who pushed that had their professional reputation damaged. None of them, there was no questions raised that maybe somebody needs to fact check the fact checkers. Maybe someone needs to speak truth to the people who are allegedly speaking truth to power. I just don't think there's any self-reflection. I don't think the media is even capable of self-reflecting. And once again, I don't know if that's pride. I don't know if that's malicious or if they're just that stupid or a combination of all of the above. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind you that you're not crazy, you're not hallucinating. This stuff really did change within a matter of hours. Almost within an hour, like I said, before and after the debate, the narrative had done a complete 180, and the media is going all in on this one. You're not hallucinating. You didn't make up the previous 4 years. That's how gaslighting works. Is saying something very confidently, very counter to what the other person knows to be true, and getting a whole bunch of experts to try to pretend that you were right the whole time. So, once again, the media is scum. Joe Biden's always been mentally incapable of being president, and if you disagree with that, then you are an insane conspiracy Q boomer. So, God bless everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video, and more content to come.